There are questions about Bouchard and the right side and the bottom six. But before we get to any of that, Ken Holland might not be the one signing those contracts and being the one negotiating those deals. Take us through the report you had today on the DFO Rundown.
Yeah, I think this is something that's sort of very quietly been in the works. And just to be clear for everyone watching, like, has nothing to do with the result of this season. The Edmonton Oilers have known for a while that someone working for them, and Steve Staios, someone that's been a trusted advisor, um, is a potential GM candidate elsewhere. I think particularly with regards to the Ottawa Senators bid, and if Michael Andlauer, who is a part owner in the Montreal Canadiens currently, and also owns the OHL's Hamilton Bulldogs, where he had a lot of success with Steve Staios. If he's the guy that wins the Sens bid, the Oilers know they're going to be in a dogfight to try and keep him. So basically, the way I framed it on the DFO Rundown podcast today with Jason Greger was the Oilers are going to be really proactive and protective of Steve Staios. And that's, I think, the best way to explain it. I think in a perfect world, they would have Steve Staios promoted to general manager and Ken Holland promoted to president of hockey ops and then go from there. But he's certainly someone that they don't have any interest in losing. And I think that, there may not be a seismic change in terms of this roster for next season, but I think you could see, as mentioned, a pretty significant offseason change for the Oilers and their front office hierarchy.
So if I'm kind of just reading between the lines a little bit and trying to connect things, like the likelihood of Ken Holland signing another contract to be GM of the Oilers, because he only has the 1 year left, probably pretty slim, right? So it's just a matter of, I mean, this is kind of the contingency plan, right? Like the natural flow of putting someone else in that seat.
Yeah, I don't even think the Steve Staios part, or if you want to back it up to the first part of your statement, I don't
Mhm.
think Ken Holland was signing another contract to be the
Yeah.
general manager of the Edmonton Oilers again. I think at some point his thought process is, after a lifetime in the game, to take a step back and do something a little different, slow down a bit. I don't think retire was quite in his vocabulary, but I think that's sort of been the thought process. And if you also arrive at this exact juncture where you then need to replace him, and you have someone in house that you really like, you don't let that person get away. And so it would be Steve Staios with a healthy dose of Brad Holland as assistant GM, along with a lot of continued advice from Paul Coffey, who plays such a significant role in this front office that no one really knows about. That's sort of the path and thought process, I think, from behind the scenes for the Oilers.
An interesting trio there. I know a lot of people are big fans of Brad Holland. He's a guy who, kind of values analytics and things like that. So if it was a matter of him and Steos having a bit of a larger voice and a larger say in things, is it fair to say it could be an Oilers team that's maybe starting to be built in more of like an analytical direction, Frank?
Yeah, I don't know if that's totally fair, because I think the other part
Okay.
of it is that they've been getting some of that input already. Like, Brad Holland has had a hand in a lot of the moves that have been made to this point, and certainly an opinion and viewpoint. And
Mhm.
not only that, but when you think about how the Oilers are built in general, like I said, I don't see a ton changing. You're going to have some periphery moves. You're going to have some roster depth pieces, but for the most part, outside of potentially moving on from Kyler Yamamoto or a Warren Fogle or whatever it is to try and create a little bit more cap flexibility, I don't see anything crazy coming in terms of how this team is put together. So, will you see anything in the short term? Probably not. But I think one of the keys to this sort of idea that analytics is a different way of thinking is, I think you just try and pile up as many little wins as possible on the margins to try and improve your team, whether it's a percentage point here or there. That, I think, ultimately, when you stack 8, 10, 12 of those little wins upon each other together, that's really when you start to see a little bit of a difference. And so,
Mhm.
again, a lot to be determined. I don't think any of this is preordained by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly something that has been percolating behind the scenes for a while.